Hello, welcome to the reflection deck of Task F for the SAICA APC December 2022. So this is going to be a short reflection. It relates to the task that eventually became a strategy task on the day. But as you will see when we unpack this, the trigger was also quite thorough, and there was quite a lot to explore on it. And that's what we're going to do. And because now we are working with hindsight in terms of what the task eventually became, that means the different avenues that one will have identified, it is not value adding to explore them here. So you will then see as well that I'll then just talk high level because there's quite a lot that I'll want you to do and think about ahead of our discussion of the IOD in the next coming days. So just to then jump straight into it, you will then remember that in email number 1 or document 1, we saw that the entity was exploring a number of opportunities, and some of the opportunities related to growth. And what then transpired is that come document 6, they then gave further light on that. And as I mentioned before, it's very important for us to have an idea or a desire to have an understanding of a particular issue, but until it's appropriately triggered, extensive work on it might not be necessary. So now, the subject, for me, it's always quite important and very leading. So in this case, the subject is new franchise offering. So remember what we've been told in document A, because we need to always work in context. But I loved how the examiners had set this up this time around, because every time they jumped in, they referred back to document 1. And that is that context that I kept emphasizing in the previous reflection videos, as well as in setting the scene. That what makes the APC very unique is context. And even more right now, because we're going to be looking at a strategy task, then context cannot be negotiated. Context always has to be the core of how we think about things. So now we are then told, hi there, FJ has stuck to its game plan since inception of being a franchisor and has exclusively focused on the Fooders brand, offering a family-friendly casual dining restaurant group. So that's what we have come to understand. And I'm sure by now you had gone and looked at the executive report, chairman, what is it? Let's call it here, leadership reports of the chairman, executive, CEO, as well as the CFO of some of the companies that you deem FJ to be linked to or similar to. And one of the things that is always quite important, and what you might have recognized, is that a number of those companies have got multi-brands. Only a few, like the likes of Nando's, the likes of KFC, we have come to know them as single brand stores. Whereas the likes of famous brands, they've got a number of brands. And some of them, I'm sure you might have seen them sitting at what? Casual dining, some of them as friendly, family friendly, and so on and so on. So now this is something that when you are now reading, that understanding and the value of either a single strategy kind of brand that FJ follows versus that the likes of what famous brand follows. You might have now gathered some initial thoughts of the benefit around those. Then they said that, however, having survived the pandemic and related lockdown, we have started to think about expanding our offering to diversify the group as well as to grow it. So there are two things that are very important here. And now, if you had not picked it up, it means that having more than a single brand can offer you an opportunity to then diversify. Because I might be saying that I really don't like casual dining. I like something that is what I like something that is more family friendly. I like something that is more upper market, and having these different brands under one roof make sure that the group targets and win in different markets. So now that is something that a multi-brand strategy can help with. And because you are chasing, say after Rendani, who on one date will want to go on date nights, on other he will want to go on family dates, on the other he just wants to chill. So if now you're saying that I've got a multi-brand strategy or offering, it means that I can collect Rendani's cash in different pockets of my brand. So that's where the growth comes in. That in addition to diversifying, in case something is not going so well, then growth can be achieved because you get to collect from the same person under different brands. So that is something that I'm hoping that you have now picked up as you were reading, because that's something that the multi-brand entities or groups really highlight as why as to why it is the investment case. Then they say there is limited scope to significantly increase the number of the foodist restaurants. Then I am always pro-critical thinking. So I'm saying that what factors really make this to be to be the case, because there is an argument or there is a statement put before me that is substantiated by something that is not clear. So for me to be well prepared, I need to ask what factors led Hajra to say this to me. Like, for instance, I then go back to their context. In their context, we have been told that they are looking for malls that are not big because they want to minimize or keep rentals at a low base. So is that the case, that the opportunities from the kind of location that they desire is limited? Or could it be that the competition in the market is just extensive? Or could it be that their market fits in, their brands fit into a particular market, that it is not making sense to expand this to other market? Like maybe this is a suburban brand that cannot be expanded to, say, rural areas or emerging communities. So that could be that. Or there could be a situation where now this particular brands, there is now a shift, because we saw some trends happening with the ghost kitchen and so on. So all these things I start thinking about. And notice how I'm thinking about this when I say factors. I'm essentially doing a mini strategic analysis, where now I'm thinking about the competition, which is part of Porter's again. I'm thinking about consumer preferences, which is part of the pastel social demographics and those kind of consideration. I am thinking about the location. I am thinking about I'm thinking about the customer and their ability to continue to access my stores and all these things. So that is what I'll then want you to have unpacked with this particular statement. So you just want to make sure that if then Elijah, or in this case Hajra, puts to you a particular brand, which you know that it's not materially different from the Foodas brand, then you could then say, Hajra, the reason why we are here, it is to, one, diversify, and two, to grow our group. And number two, you said we've got limited scope to grow our brand. And based on what I understand, these are the factors. So if we are going with this, then it won't work. We'll still be faced with a similar issue. And what I'm doing here, I normally call it as solving the problem. And with strategy, it starts there. What is the problem that is being solved? Because if you miss the problem, it becomes very difficult to then see what could then, how the trigger could evolve and what will then be expected of you on the day. And as I'm saying here, the problem statement is diversify and grow the group. Given what? Given that we have limited scope to significantly increase the number of food restaurants. And now also this terminology of significantly, it's worth unpacking. What is significant? Then you go to the context. How many franchise stores do we have already? Because I thought we have about 100 and something. So I think now it stood at 96. So when you say significantly, what am I looking at? And given that I'm not in the retail sector, I don't have a sense of whether 96 is significant or not. My initial view could be it is. But what is informing that? When I go to the famous brands, financials, I then saw different brands and how they've been growing and their numbers, and some actually going down. And that made me pause to think about whether the going down is intentional or the market is tough. Maybe the management thought that there were just too many stores, or otherwise there is just that scope of significantly growing. And maybe let me pause there and quickly to go to it so that you can understand and have the reference of what then now the document A analysis and the context that I've done is now doing when I'm reading this. Because now I'm no longer I'm no longer the same person who started this case without knowing. I am now a different professional. I understand this company better and the context better. So let's just quickly go there so that we are fully aligned. So here's the picture that I was talking about. That I look at the likes of what? I look at the likes of famous brands, and I see the brands that they've got: quick service restaurants, casual dining, signature brands, casual dining based in South Africa, and other brands. So now I'm here under casual dining because that's where I want to focus. So now I'm looking at it and I say that the likes of Mug and Bean have got 269 restaurants, whereas Wimpy has got 545. And then there are others, the casual dining restaurants based in South Africa, where now I see that the likes of Mythos have got what? Have got 10. Lupa, 10 and Tender, Salsa, Paul, and so on and so on. And I'm thinking that, oh, wait, from these other casual dining restaurants based in South Africa, we are actually very high. We've got 96 food as restaurants. So if they say that they've got limited opportunity to grow, limited scope to grow, now I understand, because it seems that they've got very, very, very much more compared to some of the leading brands that we have come to see and know. But now I stop and I say that here for Mug and Bean, there's a very interesting point. They are saying that it's 269, but it is in 9 markets. Oh, so that means in South Africa, there could be limited scope. But have management considered extending the brand outside South Africa? Now, did you see, again, critical thinking? Because critical thinking also, when we spoke about it, it says we ask questions around doing what? Around the alternatives. We present a different argument to those presented. So in other words, if we do agree with management based, and not just that, not just where we agree, based on our view, based on these, we are now saying that, management, we can see why you are saying that this limited scope, and we agree with you, tick. But we are presenting a different view to say that, but the brand does not need to only exist in South Africa. It could exist in other markets, as we are seeing with the likes of Mug and Bean. Because now, if you are saying you're in South Africa and you've got 96 restaurants, that means if you then go and say, I want to be in 9 markets, one could then expect to do what? One could then expect to say that 8 more markets for a fooders and 10, 10, 10, 10. That is almost what? That is almost, and that is just under where the likes of Mag and Bean are. So now I'm thinking that this could open up interesting conversation with Hydra regarding this. But again, I'm not doing what? I'm not doing extensive work on this because there's no trigger. It's in my mind. It's good to know. It's good to think about, but I should not get overly excited in that 5 days. Let me read further and understand what is then the trigger that I need to pursue. Okay? So I am here. Then they continue. I believe FJ needs to keep to its strategy of being a franchisor, operating in sit-down and takeaway food and beverage industry. So again, management puts something to me that I need to critically consider. So they are saying they need to keep to this strategy. But I'm saying, why do you need to? Because the trends that you've presented to me are saying otherwise. They are saying that there are ghost kitchens that are booming. And why don't you want to do those? And you want to stick to your guns of sit down and take away. So for me, I'm now assessing the suitability of this strategy. Because that's what they're saying. We are to keep to it. Is it suitable, though, given the trends that you've given me? Context. Do you see how beautiful the APC is? This context that we keep talking about, it's in document A. Document number 1, it is always interconnected with everything that we do, and even for strategy, even much more. Because now I'm able to challenge whatever management is putting to me based on that linkages. And I'm not just taking whatever. Okay, so I will then assess the suitability of this view against what? Against the context that you've given me, against the trends that we are seeing, the risk that I will have picked up, the challenges that you've mentioned. I would then be evaluating that. Okay, we have in the past debated introducing a new franchise offering such as flame grilled chicken, pizza, and pasta. However, we believe this may be over-traded in SA. I mean, I do agree, but it doesn't mean that we have to stop, right? Because I'm agreeing that there is what quite a lot of flame grilled. We've got Nando's, we've got Galitos, we've got some Church's flame grilled. Yes, some Church's as well. We've got even Isosties now has full chicken. We've got a couple. But I'm always pro for change and for differences. But is it enough for management to consider that there could be people that like me that are saying that, oh, I'm hungry and I want chicken, but Nando's, I know how it's gonna taste. I know how is this gonna taste, and so on. So I see where they're coming from when they say that has been overtraded in South Africa. But that does it mean in itself that there's no opportunity? I wonder. But at this point, I'm not going to explore that unless they tell me to. Okay, so I continue. The board is currently debating options regarding the expansion of our franchise offering, and we have narrowed it down to 2 potential options. How did you get there? So is it wrong for me to suggest other strategies that if or when I'm exploring these, I will then encounter? I wonder. They say that they are looking at purchasing an existing South African franchise operation, and they will then be a franchisor to stick to their guns. but not with a focus on flame grilled chicken, pizza, and pasta restaurants. Okay? Or entering into a master franchise agreement with a leading global brand to introduce their offering into South Africa, then we will be the franchisor for the South African operations. So these are the two options that they're considering. For one reason or the other, they landed on this. It is wonderful, it will be wonderful if you, now this is the trigger. Everything else was good to know. Everything else gave me the context, but now the trigger. If you could start thinking about these two options. So there were things that Hajra mentioned, but it is only these two that she wants me to do it. She wants me to think about. And she even is clear that if you could start thinking about the above two options, it would have been different if she said, if you could start thinking about what I've said above. Because now she will have been pulling all those things. That is our strategy even relevant, though, of sticking to being a franchisor? Is our strategy being relevant of keeping to sitting down and this particular industry? Is our strategy even relevant too? So do you see how the wording and the ability to apply our critical thinking could have thrown this out the window? Because now she is clear on these two options versus what? On the above. We will certainly involve you in investigating one of these options. Oh, so now she has now rolled the dice for me and said that in the assessment, I'm not going to get probably both. I'm more likely to get one to talk to. I'm likely to, because she is saying, we will certainly involve you in investigating one of these options. One of them. Think about both of them, but we will involve you in investigating one of these options. Okay, what is to investigate? What is to investigate? You know me and verbs, so I'll want to. So I've got this, and it says investigate. So investigate, let's see what the Google and friends say. They say, carry out a systematic or formal inquiry to discover and examine the facts of, as to establish the truth. Or otherwise, it is to carry out research and study into a subject or a problem. I love number 2 better. Make inquiries as to the character, activities, or background of someone. 2 stands out for me. Carry out research or study into. So how do I carry research and study into a strategic option? Ring, 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 ring. You know who is calling, right? It is our very common strategic models that we've come to love and have learned over the years. So that is essentially the expectation that I'm getting from what? That I'm getting from what Hajra is telling me. Now let me come back here. So when I come back, she didn't stop there, and doing some financial modeling for us. How's the guy? That's valuation, that's NPV. We cannot be talking about evaluating a strategic option without thinking about the numbers. So now I'm thinking that Hajra is complicating my life again, because I had thought that I was dealing with a lot when it comes to the other triggers, but now she has triggered 2 things: strategy, as well as finance. Now, let's explore this quite briefly. So I then broke down the trigger as follows. it would be wonderful, blah, blah, blah. Then I said, purchase an existing South African franchise. Then I'm thinking that there are specific triggered tasks based on that. Firstly, it is that she on the day could ask me to evaluate or outline the strategic consideration of acquiring a franchise operation. But that is a simple one. I'm thinking she could then say she has narrowed it down to 2, and she wants me to evaluate which one will be better. Because she says we are looking to be a franchisor and we are doing what? We are purchasing an existing one. But what if there are 2 that they are undecided about? So that's why I wrote that over the other, just in case. And when I evaluate, I'll have to include the financial considerations, because I cannot talk about buying another company if I don't have money. So I'm now starting to go back to the context. Does FJ have cash? I know they bent quite a lot in 2022, but what about now? Do they have the cash? Do they have the cash to pursue all these strategies? And Akubi, then she must have maybe spoken to our dear friend Elijah, who will have then undertaken, because we saw the Elijah was CC'd. So that's why I'm referring to Elijah then. That Elijah could have then undertaken an offer price, maybe for a particular franchise operation. And I might be called in to assist with reviewing and ensuring that it is in good order. So that's where I'm coming from when it comes to this valuation. So 2 aspects, strategy, as well as what? As the finance piece. So what do I need to do in order to make sure I'm well prepared? So firstly, from a topics perspective, 3 topics: M&A, strategy and risk management, as well as valuation. So all these things are part of my CTA syllabus, and therefore I'll have to come well prepared. Then M&A. When it comes to M&A, it will be the evaluation of the strategic benefits of bringing together FJ brand and this other brand. Why will it make sense to bring this together? Because remember, when we talk about M&A, it's all about getting synergies. Then strategy and risk management, it could be just to evaluate the other company on whether it is a right fit for us. How do we assess whether it's a right fit for us? We undertake the SAFE model or SAFE model, depending on how far we want to take it. So what does the SAFE model require? It requires us to assess, firstly, the suitability. Remember what I said earlier. I said every strategy issue comes with a problem that we are solving. So the problem is to diversify and grow revenue in the context of limited scope to grow our existing brand. So now, is this option or whatever option is going to be presented to us on the day suitable? And will it be acceptable to our franchises? Because maybe we're acquiring a brand that is already competing with our existing brands. And from a location perspective, there could be location conflict. When I buy and it is in the same mall as a foodist restaurant, what will our franchises believe when I'm supporting both brands now? So that could be where the issue of suitability of acceptability comes in. What about the issue of feasibility? Does it make sense to invest in this brand? Is it one that is already sitting in these big malls that I might not be aligned to? Is it one that fits into a set of skills that I'm able to leverage and grow this? And when it comes to skills, this is a very, very important question. So I might need to also consider the Pottersway forces as well as the pastel in thinking about this. And lastly, I'll want to just make sure that I have prepared for the determination of the offer price using the different valuation methodologies, and more so DCF and earnings-based valuation. Very, very interesting aspect and quite a lot to do. Then to wrap it up, what about the second trigger, which is entering into a master franchise agreement with a leading global brand? What could then be the expected task? So for me, the expected task, the first one is similar to the other one, to say it could be an evaluation outlining the strategic considerations of entering into a master franchise agreement. But then I paused there and I'm like, what is a master franchise agreement? What is a master franchise agreement? Do I really know this? And that's why then on the work to do, I said, obtain an understanding of the workings of the franchise agreement and what it takes to make it successful. It will be very, very big miscalculation on your part to go into an assessment without understanding how this works. And even more so, how have they been successful in the South African context, or maybe in your country of origin or where you stay? How have they done? Like, what examples can we look to in the South African context? McDonald's, which has been very successful. Starbucks, which started on a very rocky ground, where now the master franchisor ended up selling for a mere 4 million, that master franchise agreement. Dunkin' Donuts exited the South African market. Burger King seems to be holding its own. Domino's Pizza also exited. So I'm thinking that, sure, guys, are you sure you want to go here? But before I then talk about, are you sure you want to go here? I then Googled to say, what has been making the ones that are exiting to exit? And the insights that I found were very interesting. And I was quite impressed that they would have secured me a C if I had unpacked them even more and done the work diligently before that. They will have really brought some aspects that are very, very juicy on the day. Then, on the technical side, strategy again, in order to just evaluate the strategic consideration. But then, because there's the financial model trigger, in this particular case, it is more of a project kind of thinking. So I will have then expected NPV stroke IRR to be undertaken. And my anticipated task will be to review those. And therefore, on the work that I needed to do will have been to revise my determination of a proposal's NPV or IRR. So I needed to be fully present for this trigger. There was quite a lot to do on it. And at this point, I will strongly encourage you, because as you can imagine, to revise NPV and DCF as well as earnings based during your 5-day, it's not an easy task, and it can easily overwhelm. So for me, if you want to be strategic, work through the CTA video after the workshop and make sure, don't sleep on it. Make very sure that you do what? That you start working through this. These are very important topics. If they're not there in the APC, you have not wasted your time. At some point in your life, you'll have to evaluate a long-term decision, including marriage. That's how these things work. But anyways, that's what I just wanted to highlight, and wish you all the best of work. Is it the best of work? Yeah, the best of work as you prepare for our discussion in the coming days. Thank you so much.